Hey, welcome to the Richard Sherman podcast brought to you by The Volume. I appreciate you joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe to our videos. We'll love to see you every week. Welcome back to the Richard Sherman podcast. I got my guy, Mitch Eisenstein, and our special guest, Colin. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being part of The Volume. Love having you.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me. It's a blast every week.
Well, Rich, another Sunday, I guess, mayhem ensued. This whole weekend has been mayhem. It started with Saturday, wild comeback. But let's start in Dallas, or I guess in Jacksonville, rather. The Dallas Cowboys, huge letdown game. I'll let you guys take it away.
Well, it's Duval, Mitchell. All I heard all week was I was wrong for taking the Cowboys out of my power rankings. They were like, Dallas Cowboys, we're the real deal this year. We're really a great team this year. I can't wait to show you that we're a different Dallas Cowboys team. And then you know what they do, Mitchell? They show you they're the same old Dallas Cowboys. Overtime loss, pick six. Now they're calling for Dak Prescott's job. They're saying, hey, we need to get rid of Dak. Let me let you know, Dallas Cowboys fans, Dak ain't going nowhere. So get used to him. Keep buying jerseys.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch Mahomes complete 19 throws to end the game, when you watch Josh Allen in that blizzard, when you watch Herbert today or Burrow's second half on the road, those four guys are just different. I like Dak. I don't think you can blame the loss on Dak. But I do believe, Richard, we're starting to see stuff from Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I've watched him in the last month, and I'm like, here we go. Thanksgiving, second year. I'm not saying he's Herbert, Burrow, Allen, Mahomes. I think those guys are just different on the planet. Even Aaron and Brady and Stafford, that's the next class. But now, you know this. You picked on some young quarterbacks. He still tries to do too much because you can do that in high school and college, right? Like, you can decoy. You played plenty of young quarterbacks, and you just kind of let them know this is wide open. And he still bites. Right. Herbert, Burrow, Allen, Mahomes don't as often. But when I watched that game, it wasn't anti-Dak. It was just getting interesting down in Jacksonville because this dude, he can spin it. He's got a little Josh Allen movement. I didn't think Dallas played terribly. As you know, they play the Eagles next. The Eagles played poorly. Total look ahead. All the sharps love Jacksonville and the Bears today. So my takeaway was, all right, Jacksonville's fun now. Jacksonville can play with anybody now. That was my takeaway.
No question. I mean, this is the first game the Cowboys have lost in. I think they were 16-0 or 17-0 when Zeke gets 15 carries. 15 or more carries, they were 16-0, and they took a loss today. I mean, you're right about Trevor Lawrence. I was not on the train. I mean, you saw last year. I mean, I guess Urban Meyer can make anybody. He can make a Ferrari look bad. But I think I knew Doug Peterson would have a great effect on him. I didn't see him developing like this. Travis Etienne Jr. Is starting to come into his own. Obviously, he was hurt last year, and then Rashawn Jenkins out of nowhere has the game of his life, and it's just cool to see.
Well, Rich, you touched on it last podcast. The Cowboys are a team you said that you can foresee losing first round of playoffs, squeaking in, and they're stumbling down the stretch. They're not looking impressive by any means. And this Jaguars team, Colin, to your point, is starting to get a little hot. Trevor Lawrence, first in completion percentage and passer rating since November. I mean, this guy's starting to become the real deal.
Yeah, we tend to, I'm a sportscaster, so I always try to make sure that when I watch a game, I don't go negative. And so it's easy to bang on the Cowboys. And like Richard, I don't trust them situationally. The Green Bay game, this game, I don't. I mean, you're talking about Andy Reid and Mahomes, when Brady and Belichick or Pete Carroll and you guys, like to win Super Bowls, man, it is situational excellence because the margins shrink. So I don't trust Dallas. But my takeaway on that was, here we go. This league is really cool when you get quarterbacks in their prime that pop. And to your point, I've watched Trevor now 4 or 5 straight games, and I'm like, he's not Herbert yet, but he is not far off. So to me, not every loss has to be negative. Like, I think Dallas is going to play really well against Philadelphia, but to win Super Bowls, you need situational excellence. And I just don't trust Mike McCarthy. I don't. I just never trust Dallas in those big spots. I don't.
I mean, you can talk about it last year. I mean, with the game on the line in the playoffs against the San Francisco 49ers in the last couple seconds of the game, everybody was like, oh, they should spike the ball. They should call a timeout. They should do all this. And they ruined it. And they lost. And they went home in the first round, as they usually do. Now, they may get out of the first round this year. The AFC South, they'll likely play whoever wins that division because nobody seems to want to win it. And it'll still probably be Tom Brady. And they'll likely get out of that round. I don't see them getting past the San Francisco 49ers or the Philadelphia Eagles or anybody like that. But Mitchell, Kirko. Mitchell, Kirko. Like, Kirko wants to be, like, he's a Jekyll and Hyde. He's like, I'm Patrick Mahomes. And then you're like, whoa. Who are you?
I think the bigger story here, guys, 33-0 at the half. Matt Ryan, how does he find himself on the negative side of history 2 times? I mean, I thought 28-3 in the Super Bowl was enough, but you're up 33-0. I mean, Rich, you could probably go behind center and carry that team to the victory in the second half, would be my guess. How does this happen?
Mitchell, resilience. I mean, the coach showed a resilience that many teams don't have, and I think it's a veteran group of people that just go out there and say, hey, just keep chopping wood. You know, they don't have any quit in them. And I think, I didn't really believe in Minnesota in the playoffs, but I think a game like this kind of galvanizes them in a way and kind of brings them together. It makes it more dangerous in my eyes because it's like they're convincing themselves, like, hey, we can do it from anywhere. We can come back from any deficit. That's a team that won't quit, a team that won't die. That's a dangerous team.
Well, and golfers get what they call yips. Matt Ryan can get those. Matt's known as a hardworking guy, pretty rigid on his preparation. Matt likes things a certain way. That's my sources have always told me. Peyton Manning was a little bit like this. They call them teeth clenchers. You know, they're like upset. But Peyton did not like to Peyton hated playoff games. Halftime's longer. Commercial breaks are longer. Interviews are longer. Matt's really rigid. And I thought he got really tight. Really, really tight. And sometimes, Derek Carr at the end of that Raider game, when that throw to the end zone, Derek Carr, the knock on him early in his career, he wouldn't let it rip. And you guys know Herbert Mahomes, they just let it go.
And he's let it go.
Not everybody's open in the NFL. You got too many good players. And I thought, man, it got really tight. And if the quarterback's tight, the team feels tight. Now your defense is on the field, 3 and out. 1 first down, out, 3 and out. Come on, you can't ask DBs and pass rushers to be on the field for 58 plays and a half. So I think, you become your quarterback, whatever your quarterback is, the personality of your coach. And I think Matty got tight, the defense got tired, and that happens.
Yeah, and Kirk got loose. I mean, he threw those two first half interceptions, threw that pick 6, and everybody was like, talking bad. Oh, the same old Kirk. Because bad Kirk is bad Kirk. Everybody's seen him. He folds in the playoffs. He doesn't play well in prime time. Everybody's had this for years. But then you look at the Kirk that showed up in the second half of that ball game. He threw for 460 yards on the game, almost threw for a 500 bill. Like 4 touchdowns, striking, because he's fearless. I mean, you play on house money. You play with nothing to lose. You play, hey, we're not supposed to win this game. You become a very dangerous person and a very dangerous team. And if they can play like that loose in the playoffs, they're going to need their defense to show up at some point or another. But if that offense can play like that, look out.
Colin, quick story here that when Richard was a free agent after he got let go by the Seahawks and was pondering where to go and inevitably chose the 49ers, there was that was the same period of time that Kirk Cousins was on the move. And in our conversation, Rich was like, I'm either going to go to the 49ers or wherever Cousins ends up. And I'm like, what is your obsessions with Kirk Cousins? And he's just like, he likes him. And I mean, God bless the guy. He put up 460 yards. He's a Michigan State Spartan. I can't speak much better than that, being an alum myself. But there's something about Kirk Cousins. He's winning close games. This is a 3rd team ever, guys, Minnesota Vikings, to have 10 one-possession wins in a season. So,
yeah, a lot of offensive coaches believe in their system. McVay, Kyle. And when you believe in your system, you don't want your quarterback ad-libbing out of your plays. Kyle wanted Mac Jones. He liked Kirk Cousins. He liked Matt Ryan. Mahomes would obviously be great, but Patrick's sometimes going to just do his thing.
He's
Josh Allen going to do his thing. So Shanahan is such a believer in his system that, Kirk Cousins is going to do what the coach says. And there's a handful of coaches in this league that I feel that way. Now, Andy Reid's not like that. Andy kind of finds out what you are and kind of just does, with Michael Vick, he had one offense. With Kevin Cobb in Philly, he had another offense. With Donovan McNabb, who was athletic but not super accurate. So Andy's really unique. He's kind of like, my player's a canvas, I'll paint whatever's available. But a lot of these coaches, and I think Shanahan's one of them, here's my play. Now, by the way, Garoppolo doesn't throw outside the numbers. No mobility. Never runs out of a play. Brock Purdy, 4-year starter at Iowa State, completed 68% of his throws. Mostly doesn't run out of a play. So that, I get the Cousins infatuation with these offensive coaches. Zimmer didn't get along with him. The new coach and offensive guy does because he has, like McVay, he has a system. So Kirk can distribute. I always say Mahomes and Josh Allen are Steph Curry. Magic. Kirk Cousins is Chris Paul.
Right.
Distributor. He's going to hit those mid-range jumpers, but you kind of know what you get every game with Chris Paul. Steph will pull shit out, and you're like, whoa, what did I just see?
Right.
Right. And so a lot of these coaches, Richard, as you know, you played with Russell Wilson. It probably drove at sometimes Pete nuts. Sometimes it was almost like planned ad libs. It's like, what are we doing here? But, a lot of offensive coaches don't like that.
No question. It's hard on them. But they love Kirk now. He in that system. And Jefferson was saying it before. He was like, hey, if I got in a system like Cooper Kupp is in, he's like, I'd have 1,800, 1,900 yards. Like, I love to be in a system like that. And he's in a system like that with Kevin O'Connell. And look at him, about to break the receiving record. I still don't know if that should stand that way. I still think it should be a 16-game record in a 17-game record. That's kind of weird for me. But he's about to break it.
Well, Rich, let's stay right in the division because – Colin, I'm a Detroiter, and I've lived a long life as a Detroit Lions fan, and I've been waiting. I've been waiting a long, long time to be able to speak so highly of them. Because this going to MetLife, playing against the Jets, I know Richard's got a great connection with the head coach there, Robert Saleh. But this is a game the Detroit Lions do not typically win. It's an ugly game. It's a defensive battle, and they squeaked it out. And now they are on the cusp. The next 3 games are very, very winnable games. And they're on the cusp of entering this playoffs. And if they do, dare I say they're going to be one of the more dangerous teams in this league. Because especially if they match up against the Vikings week 1. But I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on the Detroit Lions overcoming the Jets.
Well, first off, Mitchell, they didn't overcome the Jets. They overcame the Jets without Mike White. That's a whole different team. That's not the team. That's not a playoff team without Mike White. With Zach Wilson at the helm, they're not a playoff team. And everybody sees why. Yes, he has the flash plays, the long ball, the this. He can move around. He's mobile. But play in and play out. It's missing open receivers. Play in, play out. They're drawing, LaFleur's drawing up good plays, and he's missing on simple routes like a slant, throwing it so far behind him that the corner can't even pick the ball off because it's such a bad pass. And that's where you're like, Like, sometimes you just have bad luck. When I saw that Mike White saw 10 doctors, Mitchell. 10 doctors. Mitchell trying to play. But I do like your Detroit Lions. They are playing really well.
Well, I think they're a better story right now than a team. The front office deserves a ton of respect. That O-line they've drafted really well on the offensive side of the ball. So the front office has done a good job. But, in the NFL, it's steps. So like Philadelphia last year gets into the playoffs and just gets destroyed. Then this year they're going to go in, and my guess is represent the NFC and then lose to somebody in the Super Bowl. It's steps. So my takeaway in Detroit is if they make the playoffs, even in the weaker NFC, they probably get rolled. But it's steps. And I think they have to clean the defense up. Hutchinson's been terrific. I'm telling you, they've drafted really well for 3 years in a row. Like, they went and found Amon St. Brown in like the 4th round. He's been an excellent player. O-line's excellent. But we got to be honest here. If they were a college team, they're going to the Holiday Bowl. They're not ready for the Fiesta. They're not ready for the Rose or the Sugar.
Right.
It's just a process, and I think they get into the playoffs. And they're another team Man, clock management against the Jets. Oy, oy, oy. I don't trust Detroit in a close game, margin shrink against the Brady, Philly, San Francisco. It's like, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I'm not either, but I feel like they would be fun in the playoffs. This is more like a March Madness, Sweet 16, and the unheralded, small underdog team plays a team that they just match up well. If they play the Minnesota Vikings, they could win that game in the playoffs.
Yeah.
If they sneak in the 7th seed, play the Minnesota Vikings, they sneak in and win that game, and they'd make it fun with Philly. Philly is showing a little bit of vulnerability. They're showing their mortality in these last few games. Like you said, they may be looking forward to the Dallas Cowboys game, but still, they're showing mortality. And a team like this, with nothing to lose, gets freaky.
It sure does. Well, Colin, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate you jumping on the pod, and we'd love to have you on any other time, man.
You bet. Love to come on. Thanks, guy. Good seeing you, Richard.
Great seeing you too, Colin.
Well, Richard, we were just talking about the playoffs, right? Pleasure having Colin on, and we were breaking down the Lions, who their first-round matchup might be. I'll tell you who I do not want them to play is the San Francisco 49ers. My perspective, hottest team in football. You don't want to touch them. You don't want to come anywhere near them. And they prove that on the road in a big Thursday night matchup that you were at with Thursday Night Football.
Mitch, hotter than fish grease. There are not teams hotter than the San Francisco 49ers right now. And from what I understand, talking to the 49ers players and staff, that Javon Kinlaw is expected back next week. So the rich get richer and richer and richer, and they'll get healthier and healthier. And then guess what? Debo is going to come back before the playoffs. And that's not the team they want to play. But like I said, if the Detroit Lions can get the Minnesota Vikings in the first round, then things get very interesting. That could be very fun. But the Kansas City Chiefs, Mitchell, Kansas City Chiefs looked very, very mortal. The Houston Texans give everybody, the 2, 1 and 2 teams in my power rankings, they gave them both great games. Overtime win for the Kansas City Chiefs. But the Houston Texans, they're not really trying to win that game, Mitchell. They're not really. They just want to make you guys know, like, hey, we got some players, but we still want to pick number 1 in the draft.
I don't get it. I mean, Davis Mills, he looked like he got the call from the ownership group. Hey, make sure you just fumble this one at the end of the game. We're coming too close to winning. We can't afford another tie, let alone a win. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
Buffalo
they just
Wild
gifted
Wings,
it.
Mitchell.
I would say so, but the bigger question, I mean, I know this is the NFL, and any given Sunday, any team can beat anyone, but how does this happen? I mean, this is the Chiefs, Rich. I mean, they're not supposed to be in a tight matchup against the Texans.
Because unlike most years, Mitchell, our front runners this year are very, very mortal. We're not talking about the superheroes. We're talking about a couple Supermans, Mitchell, but there's kryptonite all around. You know what I mean? He's bleeding, and they can bleed. All of them can bleed. Kansas City can bleed. You saw him lose to the Indianapolis Colts, who just, I mean, they find new ways to be incompetent and bad. They're like, Jeff Saturday is going to be a great coach. And then you run into the end of the game situations where he's fumbling the calls and not using the timeouts because he's like, I didn't think we were in dire need of time. Like, okay. Blow the biggest lead in NFL history. Okay. But they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's anything can happen. But I will say this. In those playoffs, it's a whole different beast for everybody, Mitchell. Those whole different beasts. And Kansas City has smelled that blood in that water before. They've been there. They've done that. They are chiseled veterans when it comes to that playoff football. And so are the San Francisco 49ers. But concern.
There is another team that's like that. And this is why this Mahomes factor, this Josh Allen factor, it's just they refuse to lose. It doesn't matter if it's pretty or not. They refuse to lose these games. And we saw it Saturday night, the Bills, Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are tail spinning down the stretch here a little bit, Rich. They got a good team. They proved something. They proved that they can be competitive, but they weren't able to come away. And Josh Allen was the main reason why. He just refused to lose. I know the Bills are near the top of your power ranks. What did you think of this game?
I thought they did great. I thought Dolphins kind of sleptwalked a bit. Obviously Raheem came out blazing.
Sure.
But they settled for 2 early field goals when they needed touchdowns. From the 3, from the 5, they needed touchdowns in those drives. Those were the difference in the game. You can't settle for 3 when you're playing teams like the Buffalo Bills. And I needed them to lose this game, and I needed my Jets, just to get the win. And they would be tied for second in the division. But of course, just bad luck, Mike White, and now we're on a short week. Jets are on a short week, and we got it, but whatever, that's the story. I think Waddle played well. Obviously, he had the long reception where you got to see his speed, but that's 3 straight losses for Miami. I mean, they're tail spinning, but I still don't see many teams that want to see them in the first round of those playoffs, and there's going to be some unfortunate team. I mean, it may be this matchup. Buffalo's been, are they the 1 seed or the 2 seed? Between them and Kansas City, one of them will have to deal with the Miami Dolphins, and I don't think either one of them want that.
I certainly wouldn't want it. But Josh Allen, he's tied Dan Marino, 171 touchdowns, most ever through first 5 seasons. I mean, this is a guy, it's his time, Rich. I mean, in my eyes at least, this guy deserves a shot at the Super Bowl, but it's going to be a tight competition nonetheless, So another team that's coming on super hot of late are the Cincinnati Bengals. Playing against, we have to touch on it every week. We're forced to. The volume requires us to touch on the NFC South, even though we don't want to. But here's our weekly touch on the NFC South. Has anything gotten any better?
Mitchell,
I'm talking Tampa Bay, Rich.
I mean, you thought so in the first half when they were up 17-3. You thought, okay, let's go. They're on their way to score 30 points. Tom looks good. The receivers look good. Defense is playing well. Held the Cincinnati Bengals, who have been very hot of late, to 3 points. You're like, oh, okay. And then they turned back into themselves this season. Tom played a decent game, but he threw 2 interceptions. Chris Godwin looking like his old self. Carlton Davis had an interception. Like, those are the things you expect. But, like, Joe Burrow is a tough out for anybody. And he got hot in the second half, 4 touchdowns. He only threw the one interception to Carlton Davis. But the Bucs, 5 straight possessions with a turnover to start the second half. Like, that doesn't sound like a Tom Brady team. 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions. Like, you turned it over on downs. You can't, like, that's not championship football. And you don't even know where to put the finger. You don't know where to point the finger. You don't know where to put the blame, because it's not like they're not playing hard. They're not healthy really on the offensive line, but you just can't really pinpoint, like, what's going wrong.
That's just it, Rich. I mean, I know they're battling injuries, but I mean, we're late in the season. A lot of teams are battling injuries. This is par for the course in the NFL. But they're in a must-win situation week after week after week. They keep getting bailed out because they're playing in this lousy division. But dude, they got the Saints now nipping at their heels. They got the Carolina Panthers nipping at their heels. I mean, where do you cast the blame? If there is one point to point at, where are you pointing?
I don't know, man. So I mean, nobody wants to win the conference, so there's no such thing as a must win in the NFC South. Like, if you lose, you still got a chance. Yeah, you must not quit. If you don't forfeit and give up, you got a chance to win the game. But I don't know, man. The NFC South is just, it's unfortunate because whoever they play in the first round, they're going to go home, it seems like. Now, it'd get spicy if they somehow can get an upset in the first round of the playoffs. Then we're talking about, like, ooh, okay, cool. But That's not what we're expecting.
No, we're not. We don't expect that. But flipping back to the AFC, Rich, I think one of the more laugh-out-loud moments was the last game that ended in the late 4 o'clock hour, if you will. The Patriots, another team in a massive state to need a win. They go down the stretch. Ramondre Stevenson's running the ball down the field. No time left on the clock. Tied up. He decides to pitch it to Jacoby Myers, who just heaves the ball backwards to, I'm guessing, Mac Jones. Scooped up by Chandler Jones. Caught by Chandler Jones. Runs the other way for the game-winning touchdown. How? Why? I've got, I'd love to hear
how Belichick drew that one up. I want to hear how he explained that to his team. Yeah, we're gonna give it to Ramondre. He's gonna run, and you pass it to Jacoby. You pass it back to Mac, and because even if Mac caught it, where were you going from there? Mac is the most immobile person on the field. I mean, there are offensive linemen on that field with more mobility. So what exactly was the plan after Mac Jones got it? And you know what happened? What should have happened? Like, you throw it back to a quarterback. You know what these D linemen do their entire day, their entire night, their entire everything. They think about getting to the quarterback and getting physical with him. And so on the play where everybody's running around, everybody's chaotic, their mindset has not changed. You know where you can find Chandler Jones? Next to the quarterback. And that's where he was. You threw the ball up. That's what people never think about on those plays. They're like, oh, let's do the lateral play. But how many times has the defense got the ball and scored touchdowns at the end of games where you're like, oh, that wasn't really that serious. Oh, that wasn't. Yes, that can happen. So why wouldn't you just take the tie and go into OT? Like, did you not think you can beat him in OT? Again, everybody get on the Belichick train and they're like, man, unfathomable. He can do no wrong. And it's like, who gets the blame right there?
That's a great question because to me, those guys went completely off script. I can't imagine a state of this world where Bill Belichick is calling a lateral, down the stretch. But can you
think of a world where the Patriots players are just doing whatever they want and freestyling on a Bill Belichick coach team? Okay, Mitchell. So let's get to the bottom of it now.
Nada. And this is what we were talking about earlier in the season. I mean, when you don't have that leadership with Tom Brady, things start to change a little bit. So the Pats might be on their way to an early exit here if they're playing games like that. But
yeah, we the Jets needed that loss for them to get that loss, Mitchell. After Mike White's ribs needed that loss. So, we just need a couple more weeks, Mike White. Let's find us another doctor and get cleared up.
He'll be back, Rich. You don't have to worry about that. But I want to talk with it. We cannot end a week's podcast without talking about your Seattle Seahawks. I want to talk specifically about the Thursday night football game because we didn't have an opportunity to afterwards. But, we have already touched on the 49ers. They look like a complete juggernaut, getting healthy down the stretch at the right time, doing this with somebody like Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, coming in and doing his thing. But the Seattle Seahawks are now 7-7, Rich. They've won one game in their last 5. They've got a tough schedule down the stretch. But they have a window. Washington.
They have a window, but it's real tight, Mitchell. It's really tight. It's like 4 people closing in on one person, and they have to play the Kansas City Chiefs. And like I said, the Kansas City Chiefs looked very mortal this week. So, there'll be things to find on that tape to help the Seattle Seahawks potentially come out of there with a win. But if they can get out of that game, they play the Jets, just, and if Zach Wilson's playing, they'll have a chance, But that Jets defense is really stellar. They got the Rams to end the season, and by then the Rams will be, already booked to Cabo and probably on the first thing smoking that Monday night. So not sure how engaged they will be in that game, but it's still a divisional game. And Tyler Lockett's hurt. Tyler Lockett's getting surgery on his hand this week, so that's a big loss for them. I mean, he had 6 straight games where he scored his touchdown, and it's really the heart and soul of that offense. When you talk about DK Metcalf is obviously the big play guy and a Pro Bowler, but when they need a third down, when they need a quick completion, I mean, Tyler Lockett's like the security blanket for Geno in a lot of situations. So we'll see how they replace him. Obviously, Marquise is going to get a bigger role, and he's been thriving in the role. And Geno's still playing well. Geno's still on his way, on track to get him a Pro Bowl this year, having a career season. But I don't know what they do.
It's going to be very interesting, Rich. This concludes. What is it? Are we in week 15 now? Is that what it is?
It's 15, Mitchell.
God bless. This season is flown by. Well, Richard, we'll see you on Wednesday for the next episode here. But in the meantime, I want you to think long and hard about this Detroit Lions team, how far they have come. And, when you rest easy tonight, just think, if Mike White only played. If Mike White played, Mitchell, I'll think about that. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I'm hurt. I'm stubborn. I still got hope. I get my Jets this week. I was hoping to get a Mike White game. Catch me on TNF. TNF tonight starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're in New York covering the Jets and the Jacksonville Jaguars, who look hot as fish grease as well. Trevor Lawrence looks like the guy they drafted. Catch us there. Hit the sub button if you're new. See you next week.